Good evening, everyone. We're delighted to have you all here. I would ask you before we get started just to make sure your cell phones are silenced. And if you haven't noticed it, it's always the folks with the obnoxious cell tone who don't silence the phone. So you get like a 1980s favorite TV show theme song that goes off. Secondly, as we provided a free dinner. You are your own wait staff. So please clear your tables when you're done tonight, just so our staff doesn't have to come and clean up after everyone. And I want to give a huge shout out to Christina Hamill, who's right over there, and Tabitha Young, who's by the doorway there. Thank you both for all the work you did to help make this dinner possible. And to Neil Booknight, who made sure we were all set up for AV. And Neil is here all the time. Thank you so much for all you do. We're fortunate to have Bishop Jeff Mello of the Episcopal Church of Connecticut. It covers the entire state as our bishop. He is just a gift to this entire community and state and to the Episcopal Church as a whole. He studied at Rhode Island College. His bishop said, you're going to be a priest, so just go off to college and study whatever you want. You'll have a chance to study theology and philosophy at seminary. So, yes, Christine, that announcement was for you. That's all right. That's fine. There we go. So anyway, the bishop told him, study whatever would make you delight and come alive in life. So he studied theater. And he said, as a result, by the time he was done, he didn't go into the priesthood. He said it wasn't until 18 years later that he entered seminary. But we're so glad that he did, because he's become an outstanding priest and now bishop. He studied at Episcopal Divinity School, and we had a chance to catch up for about an hour before we did a podcast with Andrew Boyer, who helps with our podcast, and many of you know him. And so we had a chance to kind of unpack this journey, a lot of which might be omitted from the podcast because we talked about some serious things that are going on over the Holy Land, and it's very difficult to talk about these, but we explored those. So we are so fortunate now to have the bishop be able to share with us a travelogue of the time he spent in Jerusalem recently, and then we'll open up for questions afterwards, and I know you'll have some good questions. So Bishop Jeff, on behalf of all of us, we're thrilled to have you here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Note to self, don't tell Merrick stories over dinner you don't want announced to an entire room full of people. For those of you I have not yet met, my name is Bishop Jeff. I have the incredible honor and privilege of getting to serve as your bishop here in the Episcopal Church in Connecticut. I am about 2 weeks shy of the third anniversary of my election and my consecration that following October. So yeah, I've been here in fact, Christ Church was my first visit upon landing here. As I got to be part of the blessing of your new, incredible, gorgeous instrument, and so that's been almost 3 years ago now. It's remarkable. So thank you, Merrick, and to the staff for inviting me to share this with you. This is really going to be some just raw reactions and observations about my time in the Holy Land recently, just so I can get a sense. Can you raise your hand if you've ever been to the Holy Land? Oh, good. Okay, great, a good chunk. And can you raise your hand again if you went to the Holy Land with Iyad Kumri? Okay, great. So that's just, you'll know why that makes a difference. Iyad was the brains behind this trip. So, last summer, we had the once every 3-year General Convention of the Episcopal Church, and at that convention, a number of us were starting to talk about how can we support our siblings in the Anglican and the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem? How can we be of support? Many of us had been there before and hold a special place in our heart for the work of the Diocese of Jerusalem. And many of us had been planning trips to go back on pilgrimage and had been unable to go because of the conflict there. So we were having conversations about what does it mean to walk with our siblings in Christ there, how do we support them, and the idea of a solidarity pilgrimage was born. And Iyad Kumri, where's the red dot? It's not, you can't see it on the TV. This is Iyad, right here on the end. Iyad Kumri runs a pilgrimage company there called Kumri Pilgrimages, and he started having conversations one-on-one with bishops about what it would be like to come and spend time in solidarity there in the Holy Land. At one point, there were about 45 bishops on the list thinking about being able to go, and in the end, there were 10 of us, 11 of us who were able to travel. So the bishops are all those folks in the middle in purple, with one addition on the end. Next to Iyad in the black cassock is Bishop Eugene Sutton, the retired bishop of Maryland. We have Connecticut, North Carolina, California, Maine, North Carolina retired, New Jersey, Maryland, and Ann Ratonia, standing next to Bishop Sutton, is the suffragan bishop for Armed Forces and Federal Ministries. So that's the representation of the bishops. Up there in the middle, in the back, between the Bishop of North Carolina and the Bishop of California, that's Archbishop Hassam Naum, who is the Archbishop and Bishop of Jerusalem, and that is the cathedral there at St. George's. So that's the folks who signed up for the trip. Our hope and our intent in going on the trip was to show up and to listen and to hear what our siblings in Christ in that part of the world wanted to tell us about what life is like there on the ground in this time. So we went, and people asked, oh, did you feel safe? I felt safe the entire time I was there. In fact, I remember on the last day, I think it was, last day, we went to Mount of the Transfiguration, and while we were there, a plane flew over, a military plane flew over, and I noticed it, and I said, oh, and then I thought, and then I noticed that I noticed it, right? It was the first time in my time there that that kind of presence was manifest. The time that I felt the most frightened was getting into the country. Because of how things are there right now, there aren't a lot of flights that are flying directly into the airport, and with recent developments of these past few days, I'm sure that's even more true. So a number of us flew into Jordan and then planned to cross over the bridge into the country. If you are not an Israeli citizen, that's the only way in and out. And you live in this area, you live in the Holy Land, that's the only way in and out of the country. So, for instance, when the Archbishop, who is a citizen, and his wife, who isn't, want to travel together, they have to travel out of Jordan. They have to go to Jordan and fly out of Jordan. So we decided we would fly in. Now, the bridge in Jordan is normally open 24/7, right? It's just it's a big, I mean, what I had in my brain about a bridge, like with little lampposts and cobblestones, that's not what it was. It's a big highway of a bridge. It's usually open 24/7. Since October 7th, it's not. It's restricted. It's only open a number of hours a day. We were there on a day when it was only going to be open till noon. So imagine that this is your one shot to get across the bridge to get into the country. And if you don't get in because it's Friday, you're not getting in until a few days later, right? Because it'll be closed for Sabbath. So this is us at the bridge, and this is the security gate. And As we were traveling, it's all packed in. Half of our group got up to the front and got through the security gate. So at one point, half of our group was on one side of the security gate, half of our group was on the other side. There were three of us, two of us, the Bishop of California and me, were on this side of the gate. So then out of that little security booth, you can see those windows there, these heads pop out and they start yelling at us, but we can't understand what they're yelling. And our guide, who's helping us cross the bridge, is telling us like this, your passports, pass your passports up. So I look at the Bishop of California, I say, are we about to crowd surf our passports to another side of a gate that we're on the wrong side of? And that's exactly what we did. So at one point we're standing in Jordan with no passports, and all of the rest of our group is on the other side of the gate. We were then told, turn around, there's a van waiting for you. So now I'm saying, am I walking away from my passport on the wrong side of the gate to an unmarked van I'm about to get into? And that's exactly what we did. So there we are now, sort of you can see in the back of the crowd, and the gate would open just a little bit, and the crowd would move, and then the gate would close, and it was a scene. That's the view from behind us. But you can imagine we're there on a trip, right? We don't make it across the gate. We go back to our hotel and we stay a few days. Folks' livelihoods and families are on the other side of this gate, right? That's the Bishop of California and me in the back of the unmarked van. We thought it would be good to take a picture and text it to the rest of our group so that they would know where we are. We're smiling because there's a family from Norway who are also in the back of the unmarked van, so we were feeling somewhat okay at this point. That night we arrived. This is St. George's Cathedral, and remember this is January, the beginning of January, so everything is still decorated for Christmas. And on this here, this is the cathedral. There's on the right are the diocesan offices and the Archbishop's house, and then there are guest rooms all around this opening, the guest house. Let me see if I'm missing anything. Good. So that gets us to our destination. This is us the next morning, ready for our day. And we started our trip with morning prayer with the Archbishop, which was incredible. This is the side chapel in the cathedral, and we met and we prayed and talked together. And if I don't say it later, I'll say it now, and some of you have heard me say it already tonight. Being in his presence is an incredible gift. I don't know if you've met him when he came here, right? I can't imagine his job and his responsibility and what he's having to navigate right now. His groundedness in Christ and his steadiness and his faithfulness and his joy are infectious. He's a great gift. That's us praying morning prayer. Oh, Minnesota. I forgot Minnesota. Minnesota was in the house too, right? So, Armed Forces, Minnesota, Connecticut, California. So we started having a conversation a little bit about what our time together was going to be like, and where we were going to go and who we would be hearing from. And we started to ask some specific questions about how we could be most helpful to him while we were there. It's always we wanted to not be having to take all of the resources of his staff and his time to take care of us while he has a job to do, but also realizing that this was also an opportunity for him and his folks to be able to talk to people from the Episcopal Church. So one of the incredible things is the access we had. Because we were a small group and we were a small group of bishops, So we got access to have audiences with folks I had not ever met before and gone to places that we hadn't been allowed to go before. So one of the first places we went was here to the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate Theophilus III of Jerusalem. And an incredible, you see that smile, an incredible leader, very gracious, welcoming, warm hospitality. What we heard over and over again was, "Thank you for being here. Please tell our story. Thank you for being here. Please tell our story." There was a general sense across all audiences that nobody was paying attention. And they felt sort of alone and on their own. So what they wanted most consistently was, please tell people our story and please come back. You can imagine the amount of money that is generated from the hospitality and tourism businesses in the Holy Land, and all of that has been completely decimated. Having just recovered from COVID, right? So the thought that people, we represented almost like there was hope that people were going to start coming back, that they were going to start seeing pilgrims again. So this is the reception room where we were able to have a conversation. That's Bishop Sutton and Archbishop Noam. This is, so then we went to the Syriac Orthodox Church, and this is January 4th. So remember that our Orthodox siblings on January 4th are getting ready for Christmas, because it's Orthodox Christmas when we're celebrating Epiphany. So this is 2 days before their Christmas celebrations. This is a deacon, Deacon Michelle, who could not, he was so excited, could not stop telling stories, sent us home with oils and icons and all manner of things, and was, again, the hospitality and the welcome was remarkable. The places we were asked to be, and this is the chapel where the Last Supper. So having Eucharist in the place where we believe in the upper room. There are two upper rooms because in the Holy Land things move around. So there's the upper lower room and the lower upper room. So this was in the chapel of the upper room, and Bishop Sutton was able to was presided at Eucharist. I don't think I have a picture of it, but what was remarkable is Bishop Ann Hodges Koppel preached the sermon. Preached a beautiful sermon. And afterwards, we asked Deacon Michelle, when do you think the last time a woman preached in this chapel? And he said, probably Mary. Right? So that was incredible. Coming in, Mary coming and saying, he is risen. So that was a moving. So there we are. You see the mosaic of the Last Supper. And then we were able to stay, actually, for the Coptic service, which was chanted and beautiful. This is a priest a Coptic priest who, during the pandemic, was praying and asked God, what am I supposed to be doing during this time of the pandemic? And this priest heard God say, you are to write all of the Gospels in Aramaic, in the language that Jesus spoke. So that's what he did. He copied the Gospel into Aramaic by hand. Right? You don't get away with whiteout on that. And he would just spend hours a day on a page, and then wake up the next day and start over again. So again, when we think about who our siblings in Christ in the Holy Land are and how they're spending their day, right? This was what was helpful, was real stories of who are living out their lives of faith. He also wrote each of our names for us in Aramaic. So that's Bishop Carey Schofield Broadbent of Maryland. So this was church on Sunday now. We had, as I said, we had Eucharist at St. Mark's Orthodox Church. Then we had Vespers with the Syriacs. This is the next morning. This is our Epiphany celebration for us, Sunday, January 5th. This is St. George's Cathedral where we were staying. There we are after. And this was her first time acolyting. And she says, my first day acolyting with all bishops. Remarkable. But again, you see, like, these kids are, their parents had to drag them to church, and, then they're acolyting and they're itchy, and, it's all very similar. Archbishop Noam. So after church, they happened to have a youth event happening at the cathedral this weekend that we were there. And so these are youth from all over the youth from a lot of the diocese. Of course, they had friends who, because they are not citizens, were not allowed in from the West Bank. So they did talk a little bit about feeling separated from their friends and sad that not all of their friends were able to come to this event. But it was remarkable. This is a worship service. You can see the adults trying to clap on time with more or less success. I don't know, is this? Yeah. So many of us would be thrilled to have this many youth at a church event, and even more thrilled that they are smiling. But then they testified to us. We said, very well-meaning Americans, we said, what message would you like us to bring back to our young people? What do you want them to hear? And what do you think they said? Please make sure they know how much Jesus loves them. That was their message. We just really want them to know that Jesus loves them and wants to be in relationship with them. And we were, again, and then the bishops looked at each other and said, if any of my youth said that, right, at a pre-confirmation meeting, that we just want Jesus, just the faithfulness and the love in the midst of, the conflict, it was there. That's sort of the general feeling while we were there. It's sort of in everything, but not always the focus. You can imagine that's a hard way to live your life, defined by what was going on. So they were having a great time, being silly, regular adolescents. So the Church of the Resurrection in the Holy Sepulchre. So again, those of you who have been before might not recognize it because it's not surrounded by thousands of people. We pretty much walked right in when we got in, and there you see people lined up to go in. This is interesting. I hadn't seen this on an earlier pilgrimage. This was the first time it was pointed out to me. These are engravings in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that it is believed were carvings from pilgrims in the early years of pilgrimages, and they would go in, and to mark that they had been there, they would carve a cross. It's one theory for the origin of the Jerusalem cross. If you see, I'm trying to see where here's a good example. So if you sort of see this collection where there's one big cross and then the 4 small crosses, that's sort of one theory. But to be able to place for those of you who haven't been, the whole experience of being in the Holy Land it's hard to articulate, but this is a good example where you can put your hand on a wall that thousands of pilgrims have touched before you, right? So people always say, well, how do you know if this was actually the place where such and such happened? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but the prayers and the faithfulness of all the pilgrims who have gone to that place seeking it, that's what feeds me. That's what I feel like fills me the most when I'm in these places. If you have a question or anything, just you don't have to wait till the end. Oh, this is so. If you can imagine, I sounded like Iyad just then. Iyad always says, "Imagine." If you can imagine that at Calvary, right, where Jesus was crucified, there are 3 chapels that line up, one on top of the other. This is the one in the bottom, Adam, and then the next one above that is Calvary, where the cross is believed to have been. And above that, way above Calvary, up in the ceiling, is another chapel. And that's the Chapel of Abraham, or also called the Chapel of Melchizedek. So it's a chapel over a chapel over a chapel. And here you see behind the glass the stone split in 2. Right? So then you're standing there and you're looking, and maybe this is the stone that was split in 2, maybe it wasn't, but if it's not the actual stone that was split in 2, you're standing in a place where thousands and thousands of people have come to be in the presence. These candles are lit from the Paschal candle, the new fire that happens every year on Easter. For those of you who may not have been, that chapel you saw everybody walking in before, the Paschal candle, the new fire comes out of that at the Easter Vigil, and then that candle is sent, the flame from that candle is sent all over, even all over the world. It goes in a lantern on a plane. I think it goes to Rome. But these candles are lit perpetually throughout the year. And, people, I will share with you, the first time I went to the Holy Land, my mom had just died. In fact, she died when I was on the plane going to the Holy Land. She's, sometime I'll talk to you about my mom. Incredible person, but she wanted to make sure that I was going to the Holy Land. And last thing she said to me is, "You're getting on the plane, right?" And I said, "Yes, Mom, I'm getting in the plane. I'll call you when I'm there." So the first thing I got to do was light a candle at the Chapel of the Resurrection. So felt very close to my mom in that moment. So here we are now. If you can imagine, we've gone up 2 levels. So you saw the split stone, and then above that would have been Golgotha, where the cross was. Now we're on the roof above that, and because of the relationships that Archbishop Nahum enjoys, and because of how much respect he has, we were actually allowed in to the space which the Orthodox allow the Anglicans to use. So there's no dedicated space at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that is the Anglican use, but the Orthodox allow Anglicans use of this chapel on the roof. Melchizedek. So here we are in this little chapel. That's pretty much the whole thing you see right there. You see some scaffolding where they're doing renovations on the murals. And then do you see the dish sort of underneath the altar? That is directly above where the cross would have been. So you've got this line that connects you through the 3 chapels. So we were standing on top of Calvary. And celebrating Eucharist, right? I mean, once in a lifetime. Part of our time there was also to invite speakers in to come and talk to us about their perspectives on the conflict and what was going on and what their ideas for the future was. This was our first guest lecturer. This is Firas Ahmad, who is the Muslim scholar who came and spent a good chunk of time with us talking about things from his perspective. Wonderful. I'd heard him speak before. Wonderful, kind, open to all sorts of questions. Great speaker. Here you see the different, he's explaining to us the different lines that have been drawn over time and how things have changed and how land continues to be how people are moved and controlled. Water, of course, being a major resource. And after that, we were guests at the Archbishop's home. Archbishop Hossam is married to Rafa, and they had us up to their home for some snacks. Just incredible, gracious, warm hospitality. This is the diocese that he has oversight of. So you see it spans multiple countries. So here we are. This now is January 6th, Feast of the Epiphany here. This is Shepherd's Field. So this is, the shepherds were doing what? Oh, abiding, watching their flocks by night. Good. Okay, great. And so that we're at that field, and this is the Church of the Angels, which is beautiful inside. It's got incredible acoustics, and often people will go in and sing in the chapel when they're there on pilgrimage. So the other thing you'll see when you're here is massive crowds, lots of people as far as the eye can see. When we were there, no one. And when I say no one, I mean not a single person we could see in the shepherd's field. All of a sudden, we're walking around, the 11 of us, and we hear singing. We hear Christmas carol in English. And we think, there are some caves around and then there's a chapel. We think, who is singing Christmas carols? Because we couldn't see anybody. And it was, they were Anglicans on pilgrimage from Borneo. And when they came out of their cave, that they were, when they came out of the cave they were in, singing in, they saw us. And it was like this incredible family reunion in the middle of the shepherd's field among people who had never met before. But there was such this longing, right, for connection. And the fact that there was nobody there except this one other group, and the fact that they were Anglicans was quite something. That's inside the Church of the Angels. There we are. And, bishops are not treated like rock stars all the time here in the United States. That might come as a surprise to the clergy here. But you would have thought, I was like, Taylor Swift has nothing on me. Because to see 11 purple shirts, they thought it was the best thing. And this poor young priest was like, what do I say to these bishops? But it was just a wonderful, wonderful connection. There we are. Group there. So this is January 6th. The other, does anybody recognize this? Know where we are? This is church in Bethlehem, and this is the grotto. So you're in the church here, and then you go down these steps into this grotto, and on the floor, much like that other dish you saw that I pointed out in the floor, there's something like that with a star, and that's where we believe Jesus was born. You go in, you kneel down, you can pray, you can touch the place where Jesus was born. Normally, this has thousands of people in line for it, and we walked right in. So there we are in the crypt. There it is. And again, another welcome. This is run by Syrian Orthodox Patriarchate, Anthemos Jack Yakub. And again, they're like celebrating Christmas and inviting us to come and hang out and say hi to them. So there we are with the Patriarchate and his folks. There's the Church of the Nativity at night. One of the times we were aware of the realities on the ground is we left to go to, how far did you say it was, Mary? It's like 20 miles from where we were to Bethlehem. So we get in the car, we go. When we get to the checkpoint to get into Bethlehem, the checkpoint is closed. So we had to go find the next open checkpoint, which added about an hour and a half onto our commute. Now, again, we were on pilgrimage. We're going to, Bethlehem, to the Church of the Nativity on Christmas Eve. We couldn't be happier. If you're going to work, or if you're going to visit, and that checkpoint is closed, and it adds an hour and a half onto your commute that you weren't expecting, you can see how life becomes unpredictable, and you can't really plan for how your day is going to go. And you also have to, if you're going to go and you can't stay over, you have to figure out how to get back. So it was one of those moments where the subtle reminders that you don't have complete control over your life was made manifest when we were there. Oh, I don't know if I have volume. This is Christmas Eve. So in the Church of the Nativity, there are three different Orthodox churches all celebrating Christmas at the same time. It was this incredibly holy cacophony. They're all singing in different languages, singing different hymns, praying. But you can see, you see that little camera up there? That's connected to a camera that's down in the grotto, where the official first service of Christmas is being celebrated. And Archbishop Nahum was invited to be present for that, an incredible honor. So we were watching what was happening down in the crypt. This was just one of those moments of humanity where I think they were brothers, and the young man in the red was having some trouble staying sort of calm. It seemed like the crowd was a hard place for him to be, and that other gentleman, perhaps his brother, the whole time we were there, it must have been, 2 hours, just stood with his hand on his back. It was just lovely to see humanity. Oh. So there's one, another one is back there. There's a group of men singing Christmas carols, and then another church celebrating Christmas right there. So it was just incredible, all happening at the same time. Oh, I got a picture of the camera connecting down into the grotto. You take what you can get. So there you see Archbishop Nahum is up on the left, and actually Bishop Sutton from retired of Maryland was also invited to go down as his chaplain, standing there in the back. An incredible honor and act of hospitality. There we are with the same picture after Christmas service. So the next day was our day to go to Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, or the Temple Mount. And so, has anybody been here before? Have you ever been inside? Yeah, we got to go inside. We didn't know that either. We were just sort of walking toward it, and Jordan, the king of Jordan, has oversight of this section of things, and this is the chief of this who runs this area, and he was like, "Oh, just take your shoes off. Let's go inside." And we were just completely taken by surprise. Yep. This is the inside. I don't know if I have pictures, but you see there's gold on the side. Somebody was fixing the gold leaf, and we said, how long does that take to make your way all the way around and repair the gold leaf? He said, I just go until I reach the other side, and then I start again. So it's a perpetual job. There you see the gold leaf at the top of the column. Yeah. So there's the Dome of the Rock. You could probably do a better job. Yeah. Yep. So so now we're over at Alaska Mosque, and another example of just how unnecessarily difficult things are. You see the carpet we're standing on. They have new carpeting that's been in Jordan for, I think he said, 3 years, and they're just not allowed to bring it in yet. And they keep waiting for permission to bring in this carpet, and they keep being told no. So it's just another way that they're reminded that they don't have control over their life. Again, it feels like, okay, so they don't get a new carpet, but you can imagine you have this new carpet, it's waiting, and you're just not allowed to bring it in. We were also given a tour of all the incredible conservatory of the documents and the books, incredible technology next door to Al-Aqsa Mosque. You see these cabinets, and you had to put a code outside that you had to put in what cabinet you were going to open. Then it gave you permission to open that one cabinet. You see the security camera, but you also inside see the fire suppression system, and it's all temperature controlled. Just a remarkable science and technology of document preservation. I took that for our archivist here. I thought it would impress him. There we are at the Dome of the Rock. So anybody been to Princess Basma? Great. So this is one of the Diocese of Jerusalem runs a lot of hospitals and schools and rehab centers. This is one of them. They take care of all children. And they do a children and mother model where the mother and the child who needs rehab come and the mom stays for a week. And they train the mom to be the at-home physical therapist. It's a remarkable program. They're actually getting ready to renovate. Their biggest challenge was some of their kids can't get in from the West Bank. They have trouble coming in or getting back out. But and they also have therapists in Gaza working in Gaza. Yeah, I heard that statistic tonight too. And they're continuing to operate, right, in Gaza. This the director of the medical director of the program. No blame, but I must have missed it. It was there. I didn't see it. So this is that night. This was our guest Israeli speaker. That is him wearing the number 158. That was the number of days it had been since October 7th. And we spent, you see his hat, Bring Them Home Now. And we spent a good chunk of time with him and listening to the state of things from his perspective. Also incredibly open, warm, knowledgeable, open to questions, really remarkable. Dr. Ophir Yarden is his name. I'd also heard him speak on my last trip. This is just an example. So you see these signs everywhere. This road leads to Area A under the Palestinian Authority. The entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden, dangerous to your lives, and is against the Israeli law. So again, just that reminder, like it's hard for me as an American to imagine that there's a sign on a road that tells me whether or not I'm allowed to drive down it, right? So this is our last day. This is our last day. Now we're up in Nazareth, and this is the Basilica of the Annunciation. You've been to Basilica of the Annunciation? It's great. It has mosaics of Mary from countries all over the world, mosaics and statues, and it's beautiful. There we are inside. So you see all the different depictions of Mary, and it just goes around and around and around. Ethiopia, Italy, France. That's United States. I know, it's not my favorite, but yeah, we went through a brutalist. This was one of my favorite moments. So this is a sister with the Sisters of Nazareth, who run a guest house there. Incredible. Underneath there is sort of a first century little town with a cave that looks like what the empty tomb might have looked like. You can be fairly sure Jesus ran around as a little kid where you are. It's one of those moments where you get a sense that, yeah, we're fairly sure that the road you're standing on right now is a road Jesus would have run down. But this was the first time they had seen each other since October 7th. And, you know, this is Iyad who runs the pilgrimage group. And so just them seeing each other was a wonderful moment. So here we are downstairs underneath the Sisters of Nazareth. So, right? So you see that in the back, you see the little tomb. Am I okay for time? Okay, I've got like 5 or 10 minutes left. See that little tomb in the back? And then there's the room in front, right? So what the burial rite would have been is they would have put the body here and then waited about 3 years for the body to decompose. They would have put the body here, waited about 3 years for the body to decompose. Then they would have gone in and taken the remains and put it in a container, and then the containers would be stacked out here. Okay, so and there's 2 of these. Why is that important for our story? You hear that little detail about a tomb that was new, that no one had used before, the tomb that Joseph of Arimathea offered. So that would have meant there were no remains in there, that Jesus' body would have been the first one in there. There it is. Anybody know what that is? I'm going to rock somebody's world tonight. It's a manger. Right? So all of our mangers that are those nice little wooden V things, I have lots of them. But this is what a manger would have looked like. It would have been stone. Joseph, as a carpenter, probably worked in stone because there's not a whole lot of trees in this part of the world, but there was a whole lot of building efforts that were going on. So again, you know, there are things we know, things we don't know. But also no room for them at the inn. You know, that wasn't like the Royal Sonesta down the street, right? A home would have had areas, much like the tomb, the home would have had areas where the animals were kept and then where the family slept. And the inn part of it would have been where everybody slept. So they would have gone to where the animals would have been kept. I'm sorry if I really messed with that. You talk to Merrick afterwards, and I'm sorry. It's like when I tell people, like if your nativity set at home has wise men and shepherds in it, you know that's 2 different gospels, right? So I'm really messing things up for you. That's right, that's right. You can make an appointment with Merrick after I leave. Okay. We got to spend some good time this is Father Niall. He's at Christ Church in Nazareth. And again, just talking about, he's doing what, Merrick's doing, trying to lead a church of faithful people in a really hard time. And so he was talking about what it's like for him and for his community. It's a good, thriving, growing congregation. He's wonderful. This is our last stop. This is Mount of the Transfiguration. Anybody been there? Yeah, it's wild. You can understand the disciples' reactions about the Transfiguration because you take this switchback road all the way up this very steep mountain. So you can understand why when they got to the top and Peter was like, we're staying right here because I am not walking back down there. The air is liminal. Misty, you feel like you're sort of in between heaven and earth. And there's the view. So you see the two chapels on either side. Elijah and Moses on the other side. And that's it.
What an extraordinary journey, and to be there when virtually no one was around. We have time for some questions. If you could keep the questions brief so that we have time for a few. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah. Is there water?
Bishop, can you tell us in general, especially at the Orthodox churches you visited and places you visited, how the female bishops were received?
Yeah, so with tremendous respect and honor as far as they were able to. So women could not preside at Eucharist in spaces that were not ours. But welcome, thank you so much. Acknowledged as bishop, treated with all the respect that any caveat, you're asking a male bishop, right? So my perception of the experience, there were a few moments where you could get a sense that people were either not answering directly back, but in general, I think again, because of our office, because people recognize that we are bishops, and because we were with Archbishop Nahum, I think that got us a lot of access and credibility that they may not have enjoyed otherwise, but they would be better to speak to that. But Bishop Ann preached, right, in the upper room, and Deacon Michelle was there, and was so excited to tell us that the last woman who would have preached there probably was Mary. So, yeah.
Could you share with us the perspective that the Muslim scholar had and the Jewish older man that you met with?
Yeah. I mean, so also to be transparent, and I say this as often as I can, speaking with one member of the Jewish community does not represent all Jews everywhere any more than speaking with one Muslim scholar represents all Muslims everywhere. But I don't think you'd be surprised by either of their perspectives. They're probably both moderate for their perspectives. They're both agreeing to come and talk to a bunch of Christian Anglican bishops. But I think that, Merrick asked me before if I felt more or less hopeful about the situation leaving. And there were parts that left me much more hopeful, and then there were parts where I thought, I don't know how this is going to go. And I think the part that was hard was listening to the scholars talk about the fact that, the solution to this might not be in any of our lifetime. And it's more about how do we get to the point where the solution is possible that is the best for everyone. But there's no sense that this is going to come to a conclusion, by summer, right? That they are much more in it for the long game. And I think it really, for a lot of folks, comes down to the land and how the solution of land is going to be handled. And, we were reminded that while the world rightfully has had our attention on Gaza, life in the West Bank is not getting any better. And in fact, there have been some changes in the West Bank that almost feel as though they've been happening while everybody's paying attention sort of over here. So I think it comes down mostly to, if it's not, there's I forget which one of them said this, but it's, there's that, if any of you were from New York, there's that saying that you can have the perfect apartment, the perfect job, and the perfect partner, but not all three. And I think there's a sense that either there's a population solution, there's a land solution, or there's a peace solution, but not all three. So what is the compromise going to be? Is somebody going to say, we have rightful claim to this land, but we're going to cede it in an effort for peace? Or is it going to be that we acknowledge that this other group has the right to exist and to grow and to be safe and enjoy peace? So I think trying to figure out how they get a yes to all of those components, I think both would, I don't want to speak for them, but my sense was both of them sort of understood that to be the challenge in front of them.
Bishop Jeff, thank you for coming. Thank you for
you.
being here tonight and showing us those amazing photos. They were really an inspiration. I have two questions. The first one is, and I have to confess that I went on a tour with the same tour guide that Bishop Jeff went with, and Susie and Lisa have also, and can't recommend that more highly. Iyad Kumri is amazing. When we went on our trip, there was a lot of talk about the living stones.
Yes.
And Christians in that part of, like in Jerusalem and around those areas and in the West Bank, there's not really very many, 2%. So my first question is, what do you think the future of Christianity is there? We got the sense of urgency that the Christians might die out, and they didn't want this to be like a Disneyland where there are no living Christians. Mm-hmm. And then the second question is, I also went to the Princess Basma Hospital. If you were to give to financial support in some way, small or large, what would you recommend? Giving to the hospital, giving to the diocese? What's the best way to support them?
Great questions. One is, yes, I don't think the question of Christians dying out has changed at all, and it's still a critical concern. And I think it's got multiple components. One, if you are Christian, and increasingly you're running out of people to be Christian with, right? So your communities are shrinking and disappearing. So how are we forming and shaping new Christians? But also, if you're Christian and Palestinian, where do the young people see their future? And I think that's a critical, young people, if you're a young Palestinian and you come and you go to college in the United States, and then you're like, oh gosh, I could stay here and get a job, or I can go home, and who knows what my future will be. So I think it's a double whammy right now, actually. And I think that living stones, being that, that they are the living inheritance of the fact that this is where Jesus lived and died and rose again, right? That we go and look at the physical stones, but the Christians in the Holy Land are living stones and have a story to tell about that. Your second question, I don't think there's any bad way to support right now. One of the things that we've committed to as bishops, we're hoping that a trip like this will happen again so more bishops can go, but also we're committed to supporting, and we're thinking about how we support the Archbishop so that he has some discretion, if this group over here needs a little something extra or, wants to send it. So, but again, sending it to the American Friends, sending it to the diocese, sending it to the Archbishop, sending it to Princess Basma, nobody has too many resources right now. Anything else?
Well, Bishop, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you for an incredibly insightful, interesting evening, and for the courage to go over there when so many people were concerned about being there to be in solidarity with our brothers and sisters and our beloved Archbishop, who we were fortunate to host here last April. So,
can I say something to that?
Sure.
Because I think if you're wondering what can I do, what they did want more than anything was to know that we were thinking about them. I mean, it sounds obvious, but they were amazed that we were there. And every one after the next, patriarch after patriarch after patriarch, the young people, the priest in the parish said, don't forget about us. Tell our story. Tell people we're here. Come back when you can. So if if once a week you have 10 minutes to write a note of support and send it over, something as small, you cannot underestimate how easy it would be to make an impact on the lives of our siblings over there. This is also a commercial, and I hope it's okay, and we're not competing, but we are planning our next pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And right now we're hoping that maybe we'll be able to go next February or next spring. So I'll make sure to get that information as well.
That's great. And if you want to hear one more interesting talk this week, Susan Herbst, who is the former president of the University of Connecticut, will be speaking for the men's breakfast, but we're opening up to anyone who would like to join us. That will be held at the Tomes Higgins House. It's the property over on the other side of the campus at 8:30 on Saturday morning. She'll be talking about civility and the civic good.
Ooh.
I met her at the Retired Men's Association talk that she gave about 4 months ago, on what to expect in the second Trump administration. She was so even-handed and insightful that I thought we really need to bring her to address our congregation. So that'll be 8:30 on Saturday morning at the Tomes Higgins House. We'll probably be all done in 60 minutes. So feel free to join us for that. It's another way of just building community, hearing important voices, and increasing our understanding of the world around us. Thank you for coming out tonight. God bless you all. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you.